Hello, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, or wherever you are. My name is Keithanthony Taylor. This is the London Overcomers Real Pain podcast. And I'm very happy to have with me my good friend from across in the USA, Joanna Cameron, who is actually British, but she's living in the USA. And it's a real privilege to have her with me. But it's going to be unusual today because I'm not interviewing Joanna this time. Joanna Cameron is going to be interviewing me. So thank you, Joanna, for being with me. And Joanna, perhaps you'd like to start by telling us a little bit about yourself, and then you can take it away and give me the big one, give me the interview. Thank you, Joanna.
All right. Thank you, Keithanthony. I am delighted to be here, and this is my first podcast interview. But I would say that Keith and I have, I was on a radio show with him for some years, and we've met in England, and we share a great deal in common, and yet we're different in many ways. What we share in common is this word pain. And to those people listening now who are in pain, let me say to you that our hearts go out to you, and that whether it's emotional pain, whether it's physical pain, that there are things that you can do actively, either physically or certainly mentally in your head. And there's mindsets that you can take. So we're going to be talking about many things, but let's talk about pain. So Keith, I know that you had difficulties in childhood, and you had childhood pain, and there was abuse. But the point is, you are sitting here now, and when you look back on that, what do you learn? What is it that you've learned from childhood that allows you to have this sense of purpose now, to have this podcast, which is about pain?
Well, that's a very good question, Joanna. I'm glad you asked it. But when I was going through all that pain in childhood, I felt isolated, restricted. I felt shut down. I didn't have a voice. I was told to keep quiet all the time, of course, because this is our secret. I was told you mustn't tell anybody about this, or sort of bad things will happen to you. So I was minimalized all the time throughout my childhood. I was bad, of course. I was always being told I was bad. So I developed this insecurity, lack of self-worth, and everything that would make any normal child feel that that they had no world. And so it is not a good start to anybody's life. And of course, you carry this through into your adolescence and then into your adulthood. And so it was what led to my insecurity for many, many years. But I lived with it. And what I didn't know was that it was building a core of strength in me, because if you hammer a piece of steel for long enough, it makes it harder. But I was very lucky. Although it made me harder, I was able to develop a sense of self that had a softness as well, and a caring attitude for other people, because I learned to understand that I wasn't the only one going through this. There are other people out there who are going through it and still going through it, who need the knowledge that I've gained from, which is why I became a therapist.
So there were sparks from the steel.
Yes, well,
Yes.
sparks of light.
Yes, sparks of light. And what kind of therapy did you start off with?
Well, I didn't even know I was a therapist to start with, because I used to, because I'd been told to keep quiet, keep my mouth shut. That's exactly what I did. So, and because I was insecure, I didn't have a voice. I just used to keep quiet, and people and so I took an interest in people because I felt that I wasn't allowed to contribute. So I used to watch people and take an interest in people. Didn't feel like I could become part of the social circuit. So I used to just watch people and listen, and people became curious about me. So they used to come towards me and tell me their stuff, tell me their problems. And so I just used to listen. And by, people said, surely, Keith, you must be a therapist, or specifically a hypnotherapist, because I also had this calming voice, which even now I don't recognize for myself, because nobody likes their own voice, do they? And they specifically told me, Keith, you surely must be a hypnotherapist. So I eventually picked up 2 books, one on self-development and the other one on, have I got this round the right way? I hope so. And I'm also a comedian, so I'm told. One on self-development, the other one on hypnosis, specifically Dave Elman's hypnotherapy.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you. The green book, right?
Sorry?
The green. It's green.
It is green. I think.
Yeah, I have one too. It's the first book I acquired. So there you are. There's a synchronicity for you.
There it is.
Yeah. Yes, that's the one.
And there it is.
Yes, I have it too.
Wonderful book. This is actually my second copy, because I foolishly gave my first one away to somebody who wanted to borrow it. And if you've got one of these, don't lend it. You'll never see it again.
That's exactly right. I've never given mine out. But Dave Elman was very interesting, wasn't he? Because he started off as a comedy hypnotist. And then he later on became terribly interested in pain. And in fact, he dedicated the last years of his life to getting people out of pain.
Yes.
And here we are. I mean, I'm 70 and I'm older than you. I know that. But here we are at the later stages of our life. I have done comedy as a hypnotist, and you certainly have that comedy too. And here we are doing work with pain, and of course, emotional pain, physical pain, the whole gamut. So, and I think it is the art of listening, but more important, for me, it's the art of opening up my heart when I'm with someone. I feel we get into coherence. Does that word mean anything to you? Coherence?
Yes, it does. Whenever I work with somebody, well, I don't need to open up my heart. My heart is open all the time. But what I also do is I open up my third eye.
Yeah, this one, pineal gland.
The pineal gland, and I channel the source, God, whatever you want to call it, through my head, and I let that flow through me and into whoever I'm working with. And I always feel that standing at my shoulders, I've got the spirits of famous hypnotists who passed on before us telling me what to say, because I don't know, when I'm working with people, I don't know where it's coming from, because I'm not that smart. And it was the same the first time I hypnotized somebody, or the time that I remember most, is when I'd left my office in 1994. That was after reading this book, and I know you've heard this story before. I was agitated. I randomly left spontaneously is a better word, spontaneously left the office and got on a random bus and headed north, and got off at a random destination and headed south, and came across a lady who was in pain and with a pool of water underneath her. And I wound up delivering her baby, and she was in pain. And I learned from Dave Elman in the book, who he was just saying was a specialist in pain, that she was already in trance. And I really felt this sense that I had famous people standing beside me telling me what to say. And, specifically in this case, I felt Dave Ellman was there. And I'm not even sure if he was in 1994, whether he was actually dead. Was he dead in 1994 or did he die later? I'm not sure.
I think he was dead. I think he was dead by 1994.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's fascinating. And we've used the word channel, and you've talked about embodying spirit. We've talked about opening up your heart. We've talked about connecting with your source. So this is the spiritual aspect, isn't it?
Yes.
And I'm of the same, I believe the same as you. And I believe also that when I write, it's all about being in the right state of mind. You have to have connected yourself before it flows.
Mm-hmm.
And that really is channeling. You are embodying spirit.
Yes.
And really, that's what channeling is. And whether it's writing, whether it's a painter who paints something superb, or a musician, that these are words and sounds and pictures that affect people at the level of their soul.
Yes.
And when you heal the soul, the body can instantaneously just let go of everything. It's like, bingo.
Yes.
And really, it's the definition of what we would call a near-death experience. In other words, suddenly you override the conscious, critical, egotistical mind, and you are connected to your source, and then the body just lets it go. You have intention, and the body just lets it go. It's the same thing that I do in Drain That Pain. It's using metaphor. And of course, this is not three-dimensional communication. This is the pineal gland. And this is the fifth dimensional communication that you get. In other words, there are different dimensions. We're pretty sure of that. In fact, it's been proved scientifically that I think 12 different dimensions. And I believe that we are moving into the fifth. And that this can be a gradual process, but some people can shift just immediately. Eckhart Tolle was one, and he's a famous writer. And he talks about in his 20s that he was unable to fit in. He'd had a difficult childhood, and he was no good around girls, around people. And even though he had been to a London university, he felt like a total failure. He wanted to die. And then one moment he felt that. Then the next moment he woke up the same day, and it's as if he had landed in heaven. Everything is gone. The egotistical anxiety, all the voices in his head that he couldn't shut up, telling him he was no good, that his self-worth, all of those things, telling him that he was bad. All of a sudden, all of those things had healed. And the only thing he was aware of was the moment. And this incredible peacefulness that came over him. And do you relate to that?
Yes, I do. It's very true. I think that I work very much in the spirit.
Yes.
And I think that people who are in pain are in pain because they're living in the body, obviously, because it's the body that hurts. Yes. But I think that when you realize that we are spiritual bodies, and you live in the spirit body and understand that the spirit body projects the physical body, when you start to live in the spirit body first, then the pain leaves you. It just goes down. And you need to understand that we are a spirit body wearing a spacesuit, and then we can project comfort rather than discomfort. So really live in the spirit body, understand that we are a spirit body first and a physical body second, and that you need to understand that the physical body is second to the spirit body. The physical body is servant to the spirit body, and the physical body does what the spirit body tells it to. So we need to start saying no pain. And this is how I've been into hospital 3 times now. That's 5. Let's do this. 3.
Yes.
Because I've had a head injury. My left hand side doesn't cooperate as well as the right hand side.
Yeah.
Even then, I have to do this with it.
Yeah.
3 because I'm confused now. Where was I?
You're in hospital 3 times.
Hospital 3 times and had 3 surgical procedures without anesthetic because I use my spirit body to command my physical body not to be submissive to the pain and the discomfort. I must remember to use discomfort rather than pain because discomfort doesn't hurt so much. And so that's because I live in the spirit body, and it's actually makes going to hospital fun instead of a trauma, because I command the hospital staff. I tell them what's going to happen, and it makes it fun because I can enjoy the looks on their faces when they go pale instead of me, because they don't believe what's going on when they've got somebody on their gurney who's having a hospital procedure without anesthetic. And so I take control, and this is what we have to do. We have to take control of the discomfort. I use that word instead of pain. We have to take control of it and tell it what's going to happen, so we can look at pain in advance and say, we're turning the dial down because we don't want you, we don't need you, we've understood you, we know that the discomfort or pain is there as an indicator. It's there to help us. It's there as our friend, not our enemy. So it doesn't need to hurt us, does it?
No, it doesn't need to hurt us. And I think there's several things. I think if you intention is terribly important. If you intend to let it go. And
I do apologize for this music, by the way. That's somebody outside with their car. Can you hear it?
I do hear it. I hear it. Yes, I do hear it. But it's gone now. I think maybe they were stopped at a traffic light or something.
No, it's just there's a car park outside.
Okay.
And they come in with their cars with their hi-fi on full, and there's a car park underneath me, residents car park. They do the same underneath. It makes the car park becomes like a huge boom box. They do that at 3 o'clock in the morning, right under my bedroom.
Well, some of us are awake at 3 anyway. I don't know what it is about this process of awakening, but for many people, waking up early in the morning and meditating and reading and listening is part of the experience. But there's a couple of things that the Buddhists have done, that the indigenous have done, that the Egyptians have done, and that people who've been fascinated with this have done over the years. And a couple of principles of Buddhism that I think are important, and I'd like your thoughts on them. The first one is surrender. Yeah. Surrender is a very important concept. At some point, that person is in coherence with you, and just as you said, you're the leader. And it's really just surrendering. For me, it is just surrendering to the fact that I'm connected to Source and trusting that. Is it the same with you?
Yes, I do. I just surrender my mind.
Yeah.
And then it just flows more easily. I think I'd probably make a good Buddhist, perhaps.
Yeah, you probably were a Buddhist. I'm sure we maybe both were. And yes.
I don't think they believe. Do they believe in a creator? I'm not sure they do.
Oh, the Buddhists believe in the soul within you. But the Buddha state is this state of peacefulness that you get to when you're in the flow. And that means you're in coherence, and it could be an athlete who's at peak performance, but it means always you're channeling, you're always connected to Source. That is the important thing. Could be an Olympiad. They have to be in the flow to be able to be able to operate at such a high physical plane, or a golfer who stands up and and at that crucial moment hits exactly the correct putt. You know, it is absolute knowing, it's an absolute knowing within you that you are what you believe, and that spirit is with you, and that you're guided, and that everything is in the flow. There's an interesting study, and I don't want to speak too much because this is your podcast, but there's an interesting study about lucid dreaming, and they put ECGs on people, and they can follow brain waves, and we know what parts of the brain are active with what people are thinking. And when people are lucid dreaming in that REM state of sleep, they found that they can train them. You can get into the dream. In other words, they've trained them to become lucid in the dream, meaning they're aware of it. And then under those circumstances, the person can learn enormous amounts of things physically and mentally at a very quick pace, which is very fascinating, isn't it? In that REM lucid state. So I guess my message is learn how to lucid dream, because it's brought me a great deal of insight into my consciousness, and I'm able to get into dreams and be a part of the dream and have a different ending, and aware that I've had a different ending. And I wondered if you've had any experiences of that nature.
With lucid dreaming?
Yeah.
Well, I know how to lucid dream,
yeah.
But I've never managed to succeed, I don't think, because I don't think I sleep for long enough, because I go to sleep for very short periods of time. I seldom sleep for more than an hour. I think I was all night last night. I was trying to sleep, and then I would get up and go and get a cup of water or herbal tea, and good to see you, Joanna. Thanks for joining the show, and that lovely compliment that good to see two lovely people on live together. I think that Joanna is such a wonderful person that I think you're suggesting that she is two lovely people. I don't know about whether I'm lovely.
I'm looking at two lovely people here, is all I know. That Turan and Keithanthony, two of my favorite people. You remember our training in Wales, or was it Ireland, Turan? Anyway, he came and trained with me, and we had a wonderful time talking and visiting, and I have enormous respect for him as a healer. So I'm glad he's here. So Keith, continuing, for someone who is in pain right now, who may be watching this broadcast, what would you like to tell that person?
Well, somebody who's in pain, stop calling it pain. Think in terms of your comfort level, because then you can, when you think of it in terms of your level of comfort, it's then something that you can take control of. And you can, as a technique, you can start to think about the pain. Where in your body do you feel it? Now, if you've hurt your finger, then obviously the pain is in your finger. But you can start to get a sense of exactly where do you experience the pain, because although it's in your finger, the experience of the pain can sometimes be somewhere else. You might experience the pain in your head, because that's where the brain is, and that's where all the computation goes on. And you might experience the pain somewhere else. You might actually experience the pain perhaps in the wrist, or perhaps in the chest, because once you've had the pain for a long time, you might get that thumping feeling in your chest. So start to think, where am I really experiencing the pain? And then you can change how you experience it, perhaps by giving it a color or a shape, and start to play with the pain, and then start to realize that you can control it. And when you realize that you have control over it, you can then change it, or you can dominate it, and you can turn the dial down on it.
Yeah.
Or you can just say, stop. This is how I do it when I have blood tests. I used to hate blood tests, but now I love them, because I've taken control over it. So one of the things I do when I have a blood test is I watch. I used to look the other way, but that used to take away the control because I never knew exactly when it was going to happen or where it was going to happen. But I've taken control now because I watch the needle go in, and when I see where the spot is going to happen, I look at the spot and I say that spot is dead. I say no sensation. I don't say no pain. I say no sensation. I just say that spot is gone. It's dead. I say that part of my arm doesn't exist, and I don't feel anything. And when the phlebotomist says sharp sting, I say to myself, why do they always say that? What are they talking about? Because I say to myself, there's nothing. And there's one at my GP, there's a phlebotomist I particularly like because she just carries on chatting. She doesn't say sharp sting. And that's great because they don't need to say anything. Because there is going to be no sensation. And when you're in pain or discomfort, you just say to yourself, pain, you're my friend. You're telling me that there's something going on that I need to know about. And it could be that person at school who said you're a bitch or whatever it was. That really affects us because we remember that, and it goes around and around in our head, and it manifests in our body somewhere in a sickness later on.
Yeah.
So when you're getting that pain, you have to ask yourself, why? What's the message here? What's it really about? What's the inner game? What's the real story?
Yeah.
And so instead of focusing on the pain and saying how bad it is, you need to say, what's the message? What can I learn from this discomfort? Notice I'm saying discomfort, not pain. So change your perception of the discomfort, and then pain says, hello, he's listening now. He's realizing there's a message here. And then the pain is reduced, or the discomfort is reduced. It starts to subside, and your relationship to it is changing. And even as you listen to me now, your relationship to that discomfort is changing. You know, and you realize, you understand, you feel that your discomfort is going down even now because I'm telling it to, and you're listening, and you want it to go down. And Joanna understands exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm changing your perception, your understanding of that discomfort, and you realize that you are understanding, and your discomfort, which may have been there for many, many years, is going down. But also, if you're listening, if you haven't discussed that pain with your GP, then you really need to, possibly urgently, particularly if it's in your left arm, because that might be a warning of something like a heart attack, which needs to be investigated immediately. So if anyone's listening and you're not in pain, don't use this technique to deal with the pain in a cavalier manner, because pain is there to help us, and you need to get emergency and medical attention as soon as you get that pain, in case it's, because remember, pain is our friend. It is there to help us and warn us that we need to get help sometimes.
Yeah, it's a message. It's a message. You know, it's an alarm that you need to do something. So, and it may be you need to call someone. It may be you need to sit down and relax. But you need to do something. And at that point, if you really listen to your body, you know, the answer will become, it'll come to you. But yes, pain is a message, but it's chronic pain. Chronic pain is very different. Chronic pain is pain that hangs about 3 months later. It's the shoulder. It's like, why is the shoulder still stiff? Is it because, you know, I met someone in a hotel in New Zealand, and I was teaching there, and he had dreadful shoulder pain. He said, oh, I've just been lifting bags all my life. And he says, that's the problem with my shoulder. I said, sit down a moment, and now let's relax it. And I went through a similar thing that what you were doing. And most of the time, at some level, people have pain, and it's the body's response. They don't feel worthy. I teach them to say, I am magnificent, because you are. It's you that have to believe it. And I do believe in affirmations, but only when you're in a trance. I don't think you need to tell people affirmations until they are in a state when they're really tuned into you.
Yes.
I mean, if the person is having, if the person is really having an attack of some point, then absolutely it's time to, maybe, as we say in America, dial 911.
Yes.
That generally people know what to do and they do the right thing. But I think a daily practice of connecting to your source, which is meditation, a daily practice of doing that every day before you get up. And then you look at your phone and the conscious mind starts working. You look at your to-do list and you get all of this information comes into you, and it may well make you anxious. So the first thing in the morning is the chance to connect yourself to your source, to meditate, and that will help you to remain in that state of alignment, because alignment with source is what you need to carry through your day. And that is the process of awakening, just gradually becoming more a meld of yourself with the fifth dimension, with your pineal gland, that you're being led, just as you said. I got on a train, I went here, and then there was this person that I needed to look after. She was having a baby. So you obeyed your intuition, but you connected at some point to that. And because you're always there, you live your life that way. And what a gift it is, and what a gift it is that you can teach other people to do the same thing.
Yes, I've had many. I always feel I'm playing a waiting game, because many times I've been there when people in serious situations have needed me, and sometimes in life-threatening situations, people have needed me, and I've been able to help them, and it's a wonderful. I don't know whether to say gift or privilege, because sometimes it's been life and death for somebody, and you wonder, why me? And the simple truth is, it's not because I'm special or anything. It's because I'm open, and I've tapped into the let's call it the cloud consciousness, the universal I am thing, because I believe there is a single consciousness, and I'm tapped in.
Yes.
And so I've put myself into it, and there are people who are, because everybody, whether you know it or not, is tapped into it. And when you're in trouble, you put out a call, help. I need help. Because when you are in trouble, your mind screams help. Because you imagine, if you even if you do something as simple as cutting your finger, most people scream an expletive, don't they? You say shit, and your mind radiates that message, doesn't it? What I do when I cut my finger, I don't do an expletive. What I've learned to do, I say, and I say it very loud. I actually say it out loud. I say, no pain, stop bleeding, start healing. And I mean it. And within an hour, I find it's hard to find the finger that I've cut. And the first time I did that, an hour later, I was looking at my fingers, trying to find which one it was. And I was dumbfounded that it had healed. And I wasn't, and I even looked on the other and think, was it this hand? And I couldn't believe how fast it healed. I was shocked that my body could do that.
That's fantastic.
Do we swear when we cut ourselves because our mind is trying to teach us a lesson? We should. I tell you, don't swear when you cut your finger. Don't waste your energy that way. Say, no pain, stop bleeding, start healing. And you'd be surprised what happens. Because my finger healed within an hour. and it didn't bleed. And I think I learned that in 1977 at the roadside when a friend of mine severed his ankle, and I was with him, and I told his ankle to not bleed for 4 hours until the ambulance arrived, and it didn't bleed. And that was me interacting with a third party, telling somebody else not to bleed for 4 hours, and he didn't bleed. And that was shocking to me because I was not a hypnotherapist at the time. Well, I didn't know I was. But we are all hypnotherapists. Well, we're all hypnotists because words have power. So we must be careful what we do with them.
And what we say to ourselves.
And what we say, yes, and what we say to ourselves, because we can damage ourselves and we can damage other people without realizing what we're doing. And in a particular case, if you're a mother and you're screaming at your child in the supermarket, you are damaging that child, and you need a good slapping when you do it, because every time I'm in a supermarket, that is exactly what I want to do to you when I see you treating your child that way.
But that person was probably treated the same way when they were. It's a learned behavior that happened.
And that's exactly what I was going to say next.
Is that exactly what happened? People just repeat what they've learned. And I think that it's this awareness of your beliefs. In other words, what are the beliefs that serve me and what are the ones that don't serve me? And the ones that don't serve you are, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. You have to let go of that in life to lead a full life, because that's otherwise what you are going to manifest. If you have that belief, then it's going to show up in your life because the universe keeps reminding you of it.
Yes.
So it's terribly important. If you don't feel good about yourself, I mean, there are all kinds of books available. I write books on this, but see a therapist. See Keithanthony. He's available for sessions in London, and it can be done. It can be done. I've released pain on Zoom. I've released it long distance. I mean, this is the thing, and this will be the way it happens in the future. People will get into coherence with people like me, and they will plug into it, probably technologically the same way we're doing it, but still you can feel the heart and the spirit, and they will get out of pain. And that's part of opening up this gland, the pineal gland. And this is also the sixth chakra. This is the gland that is your intuition. Most people don't know that about it, but it's the front of the brain, and it really opens when it's instructed to do that. In other words, you should relax, listen to music, and listen to music through this gland. Listen to it, hear it, open it up, experience it. Go into a misty room and listen through this gland. How does that feel? I have light coming in at the top of my picture. So I could meditate and just focus on this white light coming into my pineal gland right now. And that is a good enough metaphor for me to open it up. And it really does work. And then also asking, please help me. Foxhole messages to the universe works. You have these souls inside of you, your one soul, and others can help you out in times of need. They're there for you.
Yes.
If you surrender and relax. I use in my therapy, Drain That Pain, I use the metaphor of water. Water is a multidimensional thing. It's like light. It's like love. It's multidimensional. These are all multidimensional things that you need to associate with, because that's what we're moving to, is a higher consciousness. It's the fifth dimensional consciousness. So think about light and love, and I use the metaphor of a waterfall coming through your body with the divine chakra, which is the top of your head, opening up. And this divine waterfall, it can be a waterfall of light like it is right now, opens up that divinity. It opens up your pineal gland so that you can feel You can feel this. It opens up your throat so that you can express yourself. It opens up your heart so you can feel self-love, and you can feel your love going out into the universe. And I think those kinds of metaphors are terribly helpful to allow people just to realize that pain is stuck energy within the body. And with your intention, you can just allow it to go through the body. And if the problem's in the shoulder, then feel that white light, feel that waterfall, cleaning every muscle cell fiber of it, and feel that white light, and just feel that energy in the body. And there's a lightness of being. And very soon you know that you feel like you're on an elevator, which is going down. And as it goes down, all of the discomfort is washed away, totally washed away. And those kinds of metaphors, looking at elevators, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, things going down, watching waterfalls, water and light, for me, are the metaphors that convey this the best.
Yeah.
And many people feel good in a forest. You know, it's because they're in the trees and they're connected with nature. And as hypnotists, we can create that scenario for people. Tom Silver is listening.
Yes. Good
Hi,
to see
Tom.
you.
Good to see you. Wonderful hypnotist.
Yes.
So, Keith, you've had a couple of interesting things happen which haven't been terribly good for you of late. You've been hit in the same place, on the same road, on 2 different occasions.
Yes, run over by a car on the sidewalk or pavement.
On the sidewalk.
Yes, I was walking along the pavement outside the local pharmacy, or chemist as we call it in England, and where there are a number of takeaway restaurants, and people drive onto the pavement to park outside the takeaway restaurants. I was back in June, I was run over from behind, and then last Thursday I was run over while facing the driver, and he drove fully onto the pavement and ran me over. I had to dive onto his bonnet because there was nowhere to go between him and the shop. So I was on his bonnet. He was looking me in the eyes, and then he jumped out of his car to fight with me, and he was a tall guy, black guy again, and he wanted to have a fight with me because I touched his car when he hit me. And it's unbelievable that people think they're playing Grand Theft Auto in real life, and the police won't do anything about these people. And there's even at that spot on the lamppost, there's a camera pointing at those shops because it's a hot spot. And Croydon is a city that has more fatal knife crime than any other city in the UK. It's unbelievable. I'm even afraid to walk along that piece of the road now because I wonder when. It's crazy. You would think, when is the next time that I'll get run over on that spot? You don't expect.
Not a good thought. I would avoid going there myself.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Keith, tell me about your latest venture here. You're doing podcasts and you're talking to people all over the world now. And tell me about how it's going and your ideas and this experience.
Well, it's very new because I've done 10. I think you're the 11th show now. I've had some great people on because it's not difficult to find great people, because I know a lot of great hypnotists, and
yes.
It's wonderful that I know them. And when I picked up my first hypnosis book and Dave Ellman, it would be my dream to meet him, of course. And sadly, a lot of the great hypnotists that I know you've met, and I know Tom's met the greatest hypnotist there are. He's got his picture there with one of them, and I would love to have met those. But I'm meeting great hypnotists now who I'm sure people envy me for meeting them, yourself among them, and that's wonderful. And to be interviewing them is great. But I've interviewed 10 of them. But in the past, I've interviewed lots of them with Ruler Brown, but that was on his show, and he was involved, and that I don't think that worked very well. But now I'm interviewing them one-to-one on my show, and that's really good, because I seem to be quite good at doing it. I think more because I'm a listener than an interrogator.
You're an observer. You observe people.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is an interview technique that I'm finding that great podcasters who are out there, many of them, are starting to utilize now. As I've just been on a podcasting course with LondonReal.tv with Brian Rose, who's a very good interviewer, and that is the technique that he was teaching. So I was already ahead there. I'm not sure I learned too much from that course, because I've been doing interviewing for so many years, and he actually said to me, why are you on this course? Which was a great compliment, I think. So although I've been on the course, I didn't learn too much, because I've been doing it for so many years anyway. And as a therapist, I think you're really an interviewer anyway, because you have to find out what it's all about. And I'm also have an engineering background, so I have an inquiring mind for fault finding, and that is very useful. And not that I'm suggesting that clients are faulty; they're not faulty. And if we look at post-traumatic stress disorder, people are not disordered, so I don't call it post-traumatic stress disorder. I call it post-traumatic stress. People are suffering from stress, yes, not from disorder.
D, yes.
So my clients are not faulty. They're suffering from situational issues. And so that's the way I look at it. And with interviewing, I'm not here to find out what's wrong. I'm looking to find out what we can change. I'm looking to find out what we can rearrange. I'm looking at how we can reassess what's going on and help people to look at things differently. And I know language that all hypnotists will or should understand, how we can reframe what's going on in people's lives, how we can move the window from that wall to that wall and things look very differently, or how we can give them different spectacles so they see things differently, so we can refocus.
We change the movie, don't we? They're all running. We change the movie. We change it. We can play it in black and white. We have people make movies in their head. This is the fast phobia model to alleviate phobias.
Yes.
And it's really about being able to observe. I mean, I don't myself really ever take anybody, we're talking about regression. I don't believe in re-traumatizing people and taking them inside an event that caused them pain. I think emotional pain or even physical pain. But we have this ability as human beings, and we're the only really animal besides whales and some others, we have this ability to observe. And self-observation, it's witness consciousness, is so important. And then you can float above the room you're in. You can go back in time to the origin of that. Maybe it was, I wrote a book on phobias, and for me, I had a phobia of public speaking as a child. And it was so silly because I was always on stage. I had a puppet theater, I was on pantomime, but at a certain height, I had terrific fear. And I didn't know until I saw a hypnotherapist in NLP course that the origin of that was we used to play with friends in a barn. And when I was 6 and my sister was 8, we were throwing stuff off with our friends off the top of the barn. And little Robbie, who was also 6, he threw himself out of the barn into the mud and missed the pig trough. His head missed the pig trough by inches, And I'd had a phobia about that height, so I always lived on the 3rd floor. And the 3rd floor was on the 4th, I was a little bit higher than the top of that barn, and it would bring me difficulty. But I didn't know that until I went to a therapist. And I found it fascinating because it totally changed after that. I don't have a fear of heights now. I don't have a fear of public speaking. All of that has gone away. In fact, I find it interesting and somewhat amusing. Yeah. The things that I liked the most was something that I also feared at some stage in my life. It's rather like people's ideas about swimming. You know, when you were born, you knew you could swim because you'd been swimming in the womb, right? And then your parents said, oh, you can't go close to that pool because you may fall in. So you learn to be afraid of water, and then you learn to swim, so you're okay with water again. But the point is your beliefs changed 3 or 4 times, you know, very, very quickly. And changing your beliefs and being open to changing your beliefs is really the answer to, I mean, if your beliefs are not working for you in life, then get new beliefs. I've told clients that if it's not working for you, then you need new beliefs. And yes, believe that this can absolutely go through your body. You can let go of these feelings of worthlessness. They are not you. You're a spiritual being in a human body. And you don't need to learn this when you die, when you transition. Why don't you learn it now? And your life will be so much happier from here on out. And people make amazing changes. They let go of chronic diseases. I've had several cancer clients, and I've been able to use the similar techniques of floating and going back to the origin, understanding the emotions, surrender, let go, observe, set goals for the future, float out into the future and see yourself achieving your goals. We can do amazing things with our minds. And I think that's where a good hypnotist comes in, is to help you to make those pictures.
Yes.
To create that in a different way.
Well, amazing things. Look at me. I was paralyzed from the neck down, and they said, you will always be this way. And fortunately, I had the chutzpah not to listen to them, because people, Turan was saying earlier on, anybody can be a hypnotist, and doctors are the best hypnotists out there, because they tell people that you're always going to be broken, and we believe them. And unfortunately, I didn't listen to them, and I didn't believe them. I wouldn't accept it. And here I am, thoroughly bipedal and helping people when doctors put me on the scrap pile back in 1978, and I didn't listen. I didn't know how. I had no help. I didn't know how to get better, but I did have the common sense to trust in this. I said, okay, show me what you can do. And that was the magic pill, fortunately.
Yeah.
I said, sort it out for me. And it worked. I don't know how I knew that, but it worked. And it was partly because I'd had a near-death experience, and I'd been shown during that I think, oh, Sadie's heard that so many times. I'm suspecting that you're meaning, Turan, about the doctors. Yeah. I'm not sure, but I suspect that probably is what it means. And I'd been told when I was having my near-death experience that I would recover. And I was told, in fact, that I had to recover. And I tell you, if you've been, whether or not you believe in Creator or God, when you are, Turan says yes, when you are talking to someone who's created everything, you're not going to argue. You're not going to give him shit, because he's going to give you shit back. Trust me, don't argue with him. You're going to be in big trouble.
Well, you know, near-death experiences are incredibly common. I mean, yes. It's like the person has incredible desire, and sometimes they may be floating above their body in a hospital room, and they have incredible desire, but then it feels so good, and all of a sudden they're back, and it's like, oh my God, I've come back to this body. I was just really enjoying myself up there.
Yes. Well,
but then they are absolutely free of it. But the crucial thing is, inside of them is this enormous desire and communication with spirit, and they get over it. but the experience of it, I would think a near-death experience makes you feel there is never anything to fear about death, because you've been through it.
Well, a near-death experience, I think, makes you not fear anything, because
Yes.
we understand that what's going on here is just a movie. In reality, it's just a film show. It's all make-believe down here in many ways. And when we go to, or go home, as I call it, to, I use this word heaven because that's what most people understand. When we go back there, everything is wonderful. Everything is understood. Everything makes sense when you go up there, because down here, everything is chaos.
But the kingdom of heaven, actually, Jesus's words, lies within. And I think it's pertinent, is that you don't have to die in life to go to heaven with extreme desire. And if you really want something, to let it go, your body can make that happen.
Yes. Well, the heaven is within, and and the Bible. I don't promote the Bible, but if you read the Bible, I think it's an interesting book. I don't think it's a lifestyle that the church makes it a lifestyle. I think it's an interesting read, because if you read it, there are bits of interesting stuff in there.
Yeah, and a lot of it is passed down stories. It's written, it's channeled information, for sure. We talked about channeling at the beginning of this podcast, and it's channeled information, but it gives a lot of people hope, and 75% or more of the world believe in the concept of a soul. I mean, how dreadful if the mind that you have that is anxious and critical, how dreadful if that's all there is. And when people learn there is something much more within them that is peaceful, that is happy, that is joyful, that is clear, that is focused, and when they align that, then suddenly there is no fear or worry in life. And that's the number one thing that people say as they go to higher consciousness, that they lose fear and worry. It's just gone. And that's a good place. And it appears to me that's where you are right now. You may have the occasional, you may get hit occasionally, and that's happened, but you're in that place that you're in the flow in life, right? You're meeting people, you're being a therapist, and you're in a good place.
Yes. I'd like to say hello to Rick Collingwood and Gemma Vaz. Just noticed that you've been sending some likes and your love, and I hope you're still listening. It's good that you're both checking in.
Rick.
Wonderful they are. Great people.
Oh, I've had a great time with Rick in Australia, and he was very kind, lent me his office in Melbourne, which I believe is in lockdown now, so with the COVID virus. But anyway, it's been really good to get to know Rick. And hi, Rick, it's good. I can't wait to return to Melbourne. So
how long ago was that that you were there?
Well, I was in Melbourne. I was one of the last people out of Australia. I went to the Hypnobiz conference on the Gold Coast, and I got on one of the last flights before Australia locked up. So that was like March of 2020. So I've made quite a few trips to Australia. I love it there, and New Zealand. Absolutely. So yeah.
I do apologise for the music. This is my neighbour upstairs who's having a party now. It's 6 o'clock in the afternoon.
It's 1 o'clock, Keith. Is this is an hour podcast?
We can go on all night if I want to. I pay for the service. I can have it for as long as I want to.
Well, I think that I actually need to get going. But I've really enjoyed the opportunity to talk to you, and you interviewed me and you kept saying I shouldn't be talking too much. And now I'm doing the same thing. I'm interviewing you and I find I'm talking too much. So I hope I haven't overstepped the bounds, but it's always exciting to be with you. I learn from you. I think you're an incredible healer, and London should be very happy to have you and your talent. So if you're in pain in London, get in touch with this man, Keithanthony. Oh, I have to point the other way. Get in touch with this man, Keithanthony, and I know that he can help you out of chronic pain. So I'm Joanna. I'm awfully glad to have been here as the podcast host for Keithanthony. And thank you very much, Keith. And I'd like you to give the last words.
Okay. Well,
your show.
Thank you very much, Joanna. It's been fabulous to have you on the show again. And only a couple of weeks ago, I think that you were on the show, and that was really wonderful. Enjoyed that. Yeah. And this is an opportunity for you to give your website and resources. I know you've got several books out there available on Amazon. Just look up Joanna Cameron and you'll find her. So do that, because they're great books. And I think one of them is it still free, your latest book on Amazon?
Right now, the Law of Attraction is free. I put them on free every few months. You can do that. You can put them on free. But Law of Attraction is free at this time. Yeah.
So look up Joanna Cameron on Amazon, and do give her some reviews, because Joanna deserves those 5-star reviews that you will give her. Embedded command there.
Thank you.
And I've been Keithanthony Taylor, and you can contact me on my website, which is hypnosensei.co.uk. And if you go to Facebook, you'll find me on facebook.com/hypnosensei. So do send me a friend request and a private message. Do specify hypnosis, because I get so many people trying to hit me up for a bogus date that I will just ignore you. But so do specify hypnosis, and we'll be able to connect for a Zoom appointment anywhere in the world. You can also telephone me on London number, which is 0208 664 9595, and I will immediately phone you back, so I'll pay for the call. And this has been London Overcomers Real Pain, and that is all I have to say on that. I'm sure there'll be another show with somebody fabulous very soon, and so do look out for that. And Turan, thank you for joining, and Rick Collingwood and Gemma Vaz, I think it was, you also joined, didn't you? Let me just check. It was Gemma Vaz, yes. And anyone else who's listening in the replay, do please leave comments, and I'll try to answer all of your comments in the chat box below. And also, if you're listening on YouTube, I'll try to answer all of your comments as well. So thank you very much. Let's see, there's just one more comment here. Let's see what that was. Thank you, Turan, for that comment. And I'm glad you enjoyed the show. Until next time, bye-bye from Keithanthony Taylor on London Overcomers Real Pain. Do share the podcast, which will be going out on Anchor and 5 other channels whose names I forget, but one of them is also iTunes. So do share those podcasts if you see them. So thank you very much, and bye-bye for now. And Joanna, stay in the room there for a moment.
Yeah, please. I will do that. Thank you.